Hey guys, it's Megan. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing episode 2 in my craft room makeover series. So just as a reminder, here's what my craft room looked like before. And here's what it looked like at the end of episode 1. It looked a lot better, but it still needed a lot of work. The first thing that I decided to do this week was to hang up this chain to store my squishies. I put all of my Smooshy Mushy squishies on this chain, and this is a great way to store those squishies with chains, especially if you have a lot of them. The only bad thing about this is that there's not really that much room for growth. Like, if I get more squishies, I don't know where I'm gonna put them because I can't put them on here, but I think that this looks really cute and it's a really cool way to display your squishies. I tried hanging the chain up with command hooks at first, but that definitely did not work. This was too heavy, so I just put some nails into the wall. And speaking of Smooshy Mushy, make sure to stay till the end if you want to see what they sent me inside of these boxes. Then I put these two shelves underneath the chain of squishies. One of these used to be in the closet and the other one used to be in our basement. I bought some more storage bins and I put them on top of the shelves. So next I decided to organize this drawer organizer thing that I have. I got this from Michael's a few years ago and I used to keep it in my room, and it just stores a whole bunch of different things. I had smaller drawers on the top that I decorated a long time ago, and then in the drawers I just had a whole bunch of random things. So first I went ahead and cleared everything off of the top of the cart. And then I moved on to organizing the drawers. I started out by organizing my washi tape drawer. A good idea for organizing shallow drawers like this is to use dollar store bins to contain smaller items. I use this technique in a lot of my drawers, including my stamp drawer, which I'm organizing now. I put all of the smaller stamps into a bin. Then I organized my colored pencil drawer. And after that, I put all of my washable markers in the same drawer. I used more of those dollar store bins to organize the markers that I didn't have the box for. And then I went through my junk drawers. I found this drawer full of a lot of old phone cases, and these don't even fit my phone anymore, so all of the store-bought ones I donated, and all of the ones that I made I kind of just threw out. Same thing with the headphones. And then I organized my nail polish, and as you guys probably know, I don't really paint my nails very often, and a lot of this nail polish is really old, so I just went through and anything that was dried out, I just threw it away. I went through and tested a few of the nail polishes, which is why you might see that like 1 or 2 of my fingernails is painted in some of these clips, so I'm sorry about that. So after I went through everything, I just went back in with some more of those dollar store bins and I put the nail polishes into them. I definitely think it made it look a lot nicer, and this kind of makes me want to use it more. The next thing that I decided to do was make labels for all of the bins in my craft room. I took an old peanut butter jar lid and then I traced it onto some cardboard. And then I used scissors to cut everything out. To make each label, I punched a hole in the top of each of the cardboard circles. Then I covered one side with contact paper, and then I cut slits around the edges so that it would fold over easily. When I got to the part where the hole was punched out, I used my hole punch to re-punch that hole, and then I folded it over again, and then I re-punched that hole again. It's important to keep re-punching the hole because the hole punch, at least mine, wouldn't go through the cardboard and the contact paper together. So after I had one side covered, I took another piece of contact paper to put over the remaining side. Then I just cut around the edges. Since we already covered the edges, we don't have to worry about covering them on this side. And again, I used my hole punch to re-punch the hole. I repeated this process for all 25 labels. I decided to use my Cricut machine to make the words to go on the labels, and I cut them out of vinyl. This is just because I don't really use my Cricut machine very often, and I was looking for an excuse to use it. But you could always just use a Sharpie to write on the labels. So I'm taking a piece of Glad Press and Seal, and this I like to use instead of transfer tape because it is way cheaper, and then I'm just pushing that over the vinyl and then peeling it up. I placed the piece of vinyl onto my label, and then I used the tool that came with my Cricut to press it down. Then I just peeled off the Glad Press and Seal, and then you have a very professional looking label, if I do say so myself. So here's a quick look at what my labels looked like before. I made them with a label maker, but they had a lot of trouble like sticking to the fabric bins, and as you can see, most of them fell off. I used ribbon to attach the labels to the bins. I cut off a piece of ribbon, folded it in half, and then threaded it through the hole in the label. I brought the two ends of the ribbon through the loop that went through the hole, and then I just pulled it tight. And then I just tied these onto the handles of all of the bins. I used vinyl to make labels for the bins on this card as well. I had also been using that label maker to make labels for this, but as you can see, again, about half of them fell off. I attached the vinyl labels directly onto the drawers just like I attached them to the labels. I also used vinyl to attach labels onto my Sterilite 3-drawer organizers, but I wanted to dress them up a little bit more so that you couldn't see the contents. So I took a piece of paper and then I measured it so that it was the same size as the front part of the drawer. This is going to be our template. And once I had my template finished, I traced it onto a light purple piece of paper. I cut the purple pieces of paper out, and then I used Scotch tape to attach them to the front of each drawer. I put tape on the sides and then in the middle as well. After doing all of that work with my Cricut, I decided that I wanted to make a Cricut tool organizer. So I laid out all of my Cricut tools onto this old piece of wood, and this actually used to be the top of an American Girl doll desk that I made, and so I just used a pen to mark where I wanted all of the nails to go. And then I hammered in some nails that I had left over from when I built my cube organizers. I attached heavy-duty command strips to the back of the piece of wood, and then I hung it up on the wall. And here's what the organizer looked like once it was done. Make sure, if you make this, that the nails are pointing slightly up instead of pointing down so that all of the things will stay on there. So I put all of my Cricut tools on there, and then I hung the mats above them with some command hooks. So at this point, my craft room was actually starting to look pretty decent. Unfortunately though, I still had this huge mess underneath the table. I bought one of these 6-cube organizers at Walmart so that I could fit more underneath the table. So I just went ahead and then I built it and I slid it underneath the table. I put everything that was underneath the table into the cube organizer, and while this made it look better, I still thought it could use some work. I decided to make a table skirt out of this fabric that I got at Joann Fabrics for $2.80 per yard. For the piece at the front of the table, I measured out a piece that was 1.5 times the length of the table and 3 inches longer than the distance from the top of the table to the floor. I used a ruler to make a mark 2 inches below the top of the fabric. I folded the top part of the fabric over on the line and pinned it into place. You could do this after you cut out the piece. I don't know why I did it before, but yeah, anyways, then I just cut out the piece. I folded over the raw edges of the fabric and then I pressed them using my iron. Then I took my sewing machine and I sewed along the edge. And since this was a cotton fabric, I just used a basic straight stitch. I did the same thing for the opposite raw edge of the fabric, and here's what I was left with at this point. And once the sides were hemmed, I went ahead and I sewed the part at the top that we folded over. This is a 2-inch tube of fabric that the tension rod is going to go through, and I made sure to make the tube of fabric extra wide so that it wouldn't have any trouble going over the tension rod. I bought a tension rod for a little under $3 at Walmart. I slipped the fabric onto the tension rod and put it underneath the table to see how much I would need to hem it. I folded, pressed, and then sewed the bottom edge the same way that we did before, and then I slipped the piece of fabric onto the tension rod. I had already pre-measured the tension rod to be the same size as the part underneath the table. And then I just attached it to the front part of the table. For the sides of the table, I measured out a piece of fabric that was 1 inch longer and 1 inch wider than the side of the table. Then I folded and pressed the edges and sewed along them. I sewed a piece of Velcro onto the top part of the front side of the fabric. Then I used command strips to attach the opposite part of the Velcro to the underside of the table. And you could also use hot glue to do this, but I didn't want to ruin the table. I attached the sides with Velcro because I wouldn't be needing to open them as often, plus I already had the Velcro at home so I didn't have to buy anything. And here's a look at the table once I was finished with it. I think it looks really nice. This is a great way to create storage underneath the table. The front piece slides over really easily so I can still sit here comfortably. So next I had to move on to the top of the table. I had previously put marble contact paper on the top, and as you can see, it has definitely seen better days. There are definitely quite a few paint stains on this contact paper, so I decided to just remove it completely. I removed the old contact paper and then I bought some new contact paper to attach to the table. I put it onto the table and I smoothed out any air bubbles using a ruler. Since the edges of my table were slightly curved, I made a few cuts on the edges and then I folded over the contact paper. And I cut off any excess using this utility knife. When both edges were done, I smoothed out the front part and then I cut off any excess. And here's what the table looked like once I was done. It's definitely an improvement, although next time that I get this contact paper, I think I would put some like white contact paper underneath it since you can kind of still see the table through it. I still had some fabric left over and this empty wall above my Cricut machine, so I decided to make my own bulletin board. I made the base of the bulletin board by using this cardboard box that my cutting mat came in. I used my knife to cut off the front and the back part of the box. I needed 3 layers of cardboard so that the pins wouldn't hit the wall, so I put down one of the pieces of cardboard and then I glued some extra cardboard on top of it. And then I took the other big piece of cardboard and I glued that on top. I cut off any of the excess cardboard and then I used duct tape to tape up the edges. And then I laid out my piece of fabric and make sure to iron it first, and then I put the piece of cardboard on top of the fabric. I folded the fabric over the edges of the cardboard and I used pins to attach it. You could use hot glue to attach the fabric, but I just found this to be a little bit easier. I really do need to learn to shut the door when I'm doing things like this, but I did have a little helper. And once the edges are pinned, flip it over and you have a really inexpensive new bulletin board. I used heavy-duty command strips to hang the bulletin board on the wall above my Cricut machine. So here's what the room looked like after 2 weeks of cleaning. It's definitely a huge improvement, and I'm so excited to have a space where I can actually work now. So over here I just have the cart, which I moved over by the shelves instead of having it by the table, and then I also have all of these bins which hold my squishies, new products, recycled materials, and a whole bunch of other things. I also have glues and perler beads and vinyl on that shelf. And above that I have my chain of squishies, which I'm obsessed with, and then all of my American Girl dolls. I still have a few random things that I need to find homes for, but look at this table. I am obsessed with this. Like, I'm so happy with how it turned out. This used to be our old kitchen table, and then we moved it in here to be a craft table, and I just think it looks so good. And adding a table skirt is a great way to create extra storage. So then beside that, I have my cube shelves with all of the beautiful labels, and again, I'm obsessed with these. It was a lot of extra effort, like I could have just wrote on there with a Sharpie, but I definitely think it was worth it. And beside that, we have my sewing machine and this chair, and in the next episode, I'm going to be making over this chair, as well as getting a pegboard and hanging the lights from the ceiling, and doing like a backdrop stand and like a whole bunch of other stuff, so definitely stay tuned for that. But next to that, I just have my Cricut machine and then all of these bins. And above the Cricut machine, I have the bulletin board that I made and all of my Cricut mats and Cricut tools. I also cleaned up the right side of the closet, since in the last episode I cleaned out the left side. And again, it might not look super organized, but it is actually way more organized than it used to be. So as promised, here's what's new from Smooshy Mushy. They have a Sugar Fix series and a Creamy Dreamy series. The Sugar Fix series comes in these cute little gumball containers. There are 8 squishies for you to collect, and 2 of them are rare and they glow in the dark. Here are the 4 squishies that I got, and we actually got one of the super rare ones that glows in the dark. And only the big squishy of this glows in the dark. The bestie does not glow in the dark, but I still think that it's super cool. And did you guys know that Smooshy Mushy has an app now? I'll make sure to leave a link for it in the description. My favorite part about the app is that there's a game that's kind of like Flappy Bird. I love the little containers that the Smooshy Mushies come in, but I'm not really sure what to do with all of these little containers. I use this one to hold gumballs. Comment down below if there's something that you use Smooshy Mushy containers for. And next we have the Smooshy Mushy Creamy Dreamy series, and so there are 8 to collect in this series as well. And here are the 3 that we got. They come with these little besties that are supposed to be, I think, like frosting, but to me they look like little unicorn poops. So thank you guys so much for watching. Here are today's shoutouts, and if you want a shoutout in my next video, make sure to download Poshmark using the link in the description. Comment when you're done, and I'll pick 3 people to give a shoutout to in my next video. So thank you guys so much for watching, and if you're not already and you'd like to be, make sure to subscribe for more videos just like this one, and as always, make sure to follow me on Instagram. It is @WellerMegs, and yeah, I love you guys so much, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye!